Mr. Chair, I have an amendment at the desk.
The gentleman from North Carolina has an amendment at the desk. Will he please specify which amendment?
Amendment 77.
Clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 77, printed in the Congressional Record, offered by Mr. Nickel of North Carolina.
The gentleman from North Carolina is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in support of Amendment 77. And listen, the American people have been hit so hard by inflation and the rising cost of goods. In its current form, the Strategic Production Response Act deprives the federal government of one of the most important tools in its toolbox to fight inflation and to lower gas prices. Mr. Chair, my amendment is simple. It would protect our ability to fight inflation by releasing oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve and would create an exception clause to ensure that the Secretary of Energy can draw down the reserve if a delay in drawdown would worsen inflation. Releasing oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine was a critical strategy that helped lower gas prices for American families. This bill, without my amendment, could hurt working Americans struggling so hard with rising prices. I urge my colleagues to support my amendment to protect American families from rising gas prices and runaway inflation. Listen, lowering gas prices is not a political tactic. It is a question of survival for many Americans. Mr. Chair, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina seek recognition?
Mr. Chair, I rise in opposition to this amendment.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Inflation? The Biden policies are causing inflation across this country and not allowing America to come roaring back after the pandemic. First thing he did was stop oil and gas production in this country, ended leases, stopped federal leasing. And that's caused gas prices to go up that affect all of our constituents, not just the lower income ones, but all of them. And the lower income people pay a higher percentage of their discretionary income for energy due to this administration's policies. A higher percentage. That means they have less money to spend on other commodities that they want to buy to improve their lives. If you want to lower inflation in this country, let's get the economy back. And one way to get the economy back is to provide cheap diesel fuel so that those commodities can be transported across the country. And that diesel fuel is affordable for the farmers to plant their crops and harvest their crops. Inflation is going to continue because of this administration's policies affecting energy prices for our farmers. Commodities are going to be higher than they are today because of the input cost. Fertilizer comes from energy sources. That's an input cost. Diesel fuel for tractors and trucks transport the crops from the crop to the processors to the store. If we want to lower inflation in this country, we do it through American energy dominance. We've got the resources. All we got to do is go tap them, increase supply to meet demand. That is how you lower prices, and that's how you address the inflationary data that we're seeing. Inflation is caused by this administration spending too much money, printing too much money, and not increasing American energy security. Providing plans under H.R. 21 that will lead to an increase in production of American energy. It creates wealth, it creates jobs, it creates tax revenues, it leads to lower prices, and it definitely combats inflation. We know this from the shale revolution, which added hardworking Americans, added to their jobs, added to their bank accounts, added to their spending, increased economic activity, a healthy economy, limited inflation. Energy is the foundation of everything in modern life. When the price of energy goes up, everything does. And it's not just transportation fuels. When you put a barrel of hydrocarbon under pressure, it separates in miraculous products that are used by this nation and the world, not just for transportation fuels. Low-income Americans feel the pain the most. Let's support building a healthy economy to reduce inflation and ensure American energy security. I'll go back that this bill deals with SPR. The drawdown by this administration to affect energy prices for American constituents, voters, right before an election. Wasn't a proper use of it then, won't be a proper use of it today, and it will not be a proper use of it in the future. It's there for emergencies for this nation. That's what it should be used for. We need to replenish the SPR so it will be available. It will be available in a time of a true emergency in this country. I urge my colleagues to vote no on this, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.